Going back to like the real estate component, like what was the first space that you saw where you're like, I can visualize this happening here?
Yeah, so, and it's a great question, and like I know you've looked at real estate spaces too, like, you know, sometimes it's mixed emotions. Some places you can see and talk yourself into things.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's not what your original vision is, but it's like, well, this could be some really exclusive club.
Right,
it's
yes,
like
yep.
the most badass courts in the world.
Yeah, look at the view from these windows on 1.5 courts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Like, we do 2 courts in here, and it is beautiful, and somehow it needs to be for Bill Gates only.
Yes. Maybe we're describing the same space.
So that happened.
Yeah.
You know, I think some of the earliest spaces, there was a couple of days where I went, maybe it felt like a couple of days, maybe it was one long day, went with the broker, and we just went from place to place to place. Mm-hmm. So we hopped around a bunch in like Williamsburg, hopped around, you know, like sort of Cobble Hill, downtown Brooklyn, Gowanus, some in Bushwick, and made a full day out of it. So there's a lot to take in, there's a lot to see, and because that was more of my first exposure, in some ways you can get overwhelmed because you see a place that looks rough.
Yep.
You know, you're like, this is not like going to look for a residential apartment to rent. Yep. You know, you're like, okay, so.
Like, no lighting, no HVAC, no anything.
Water coming out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, oh, was that a cat or a rat that went by? It might have been both.
Yeah.
So totally like New York, warehousey / commercial spaces that, you know, have potential, I guess.
Yeah.
But you got to see it.
Yeah.
And so, like, there was one, you know, saw like a nice place by Wegmans, for example. Now, maybe you've seen it. I don't know. You know, in the Navy Yard area.
Yeah.
You go up and it's really nice and looks good. You're like, well, this could work, right? And maybe it could. And you start to figure out like the pricing on it, and you start to really think about the location. You see one in Bushwick. It's a lot cheaper, but like, you know, the build out.
How do you get there? Yeah.
You know, so you're trying to think of location, trying to think of the structure, trying to think of the build out. But in all honesty, and this is in all honesty, there was only one place that I actually fell in love with and really wanted. And ultimately, after like, from the time of really first seeing it, right? So this would be 2020. Yeah, it's been, is that a year now? Is that 2.5 years? What?
You tell me when you fell in love.
Let's call it March of 2021.
Okay.
That's 2 years ago. I mean more. I guess is when I first saw this space.
Yeah.
And really loved the space.
And this is a space.
I cannot believe it's been that long.
I know.
Yes. Ultimately, this is the space we have.
I think, you know, we've experienced this from like a, you know, residential side. You know, they always say like, don't fall in love with the first place or whatever. And like, it's so hard because you have to visualize it. You have to imagine yourself committing to a space, right? And you have to imagine like this could possibly be our home. And so often, so many people put that effort in, that mental and emotional effort in, only for things to fall apart for a plethora of reasons, right? So
it fell apart.
Right. So so tell us about that.
Well, before I go to that, I want to, like, there were some places to look at that have good spacing, look good, but it's like underground. And you're like, because you're talking about being a home.
Yeah.
And so you go to this like home, and like, man, I'm gonna have to live here. Do I really want to live underground?
In the basement.
Yeah. You know, you're like, I guess this could fit courts, but like, it's not pleasant to me. You know, it's not something that I really want to bring to the community. So it's trying to walk this balance of somewhere that feels somewhere you really want to be, somewhere that feels like home, especially if it's like a long-term lease, with actually fitting certain criteria that you need to do pickleball. To answer your question of this space, so I fell in love with the current space that we're now in contract for, and that's in Gowanus. love Gowanus. I think there's a lot of development going on, but conveniently it's also like 6 blocks from my house. And so I knew if I had to live somewhere, I'm a whole lot more likely to live somewhere that's close by to me than if it was a half hour, 45-minute drive away.
Yeah.
But architecturally, it was just cool. Like it's got 23 skylights. The columns are good. The floor is good. The building's been really well cared for. It's architectural. You come up to it, it just feels good. It's on the canal. It's just pretty. And good curb appeal. It's somewhere fresh. It just felt right.
Sounds pretty perfect.
I think I love it. I love it. A mezzanine in the middle. You can look out in all different views. Awesome lighting. But I think a lot of people have run into this issue in New York. At the time, landlords didn't know what pickleball was. And so it was a hard pitch. There's no proven entity. You can't show like historical pickleball financials, right? I can't show that this business has been operating and done whatever. And let alone is pickleball a fad or not. And you're asking some landlord to believe in you and give you their building and expect you to make the payments and trust you to build it out. That was one of the harder pitches in a lot of the meetings initially with the landlords. And we had a lot of back and forth. And we negotiated this letter of intent, this LOI, honestly, for probably, it had to have been at least like 3 months. Because it took me into early summer of 2021. It's just surprised how much time's gone by. And we agreed on the terms. And brokers are talking, there's certain pressure, like this landlord has got other people looking at the space. And
was that from their broker?
But it's like, okay, well, we've reached some kind of an agreement here. We've really narrowed down these deal terms. That takes a long time to do. Yeah, it doesn't always, but in this case it did. And then, at the very end, the broker's like, well, the landlord's considering between these 2 offers.
Got it.
And it doesn't look good.
So this was like you had an LOI in front of you, or you were like working out the details.
I signed it.
You signed the LOI.
Signed the LOI.
So it wasn't countersigned though.
Right. It wasn't countersigned. And I'm waiting on it, and I feel like anxious and frustrated because, like, why not? We just spent so much time working this through. If there's an issue, like, let me know.
Let's fix it. Yeah, let's get.
What do I need to do to get you more
line.
comfortable?
Yeah.
And the broker pretty much said is gonna go with the other tenant. It was like shit, right? So like that was really low, and I was like, well, I got to do something. Because deals fall through or whatever happens, and I don't know, I was in a moment of like panic and anxiety. So I went on Fiverr and found a guy in Nigeria to write a rap song for me addressed to the landlord on why he should lease his space to me.
So we're gonna cut to that rap song.
I gotta show you this rap song. And threw together like a quick rendering of the front of the building. Put this rap song on it, and literally did it in an afternoon. You'll hear this rap song. The guy is literally rapping to my text messages.
He's got the phone
we're
in front
not
of
like
him.
on the phone. It's like he's really out there, and it's like, I need a rap song. Trying to convince this landlord of X, Y, and Z. And here's what it is, and he just like took the text messages and just rapped to them. And he's like, and I need you to find me like a Google open source beat. So just give me a beat and let's get the song done. And it was one draft. This wasn't like revised.
There's no ChatGPT back then.
No ChatGPT back then, and like no revisions. I can't wait to show you this rap song. So I sent it to the brokers, like, do you think I could send this? Will it help? And they're just like, no, don't do it. They're like, don't do it. you know, it can make you seem amateur because he's gonna be like, oh my God, who am I considering renting this out to? They're
Right.
making me a rap song.
But you interacted directly with the landlord up until that, or was everything kind of with arm's length apart?
So I had interactions with him. We did like a couple interviews.
Yes.
And like discussed in our business plan. There was a few Zoom meetings.
Yep.
But it was like a lot more formal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't get to really kind of. You didn't drag him out to the court,
No.
I assume.
No, I've tried to.
Yeah.
So right, it's more informal. You don't really know each other.
Yeah.
That's what the brokers told me. Not to do it. Like, it's cute and whatever,
Yeah.
but like,
Don't.
yeah, at these prices and for these real estates and stuff like that, we don't think you should be just sending out like
Sure.
a rap video song to the
From
landlord.
Fiverr.
Fuck it, I sent it.
Yeah.
And like got an email back from the landlord how he loved it, and like no one's ever done anything like that for him, or has he seen something like that?
Yeah.
He thought it was awesome, super creative, and he's like, look, I promise you, if anything happens here, I'm coming right back to you.